Alright, today we're going to talk about every psychic who has solved crimes. Kristy Robinett. In Columbus, Ohio, on June 16th, 2004, Ashley Lynn Howley, a 20-year-old woman, was in a toxic relationship with her boyfriend, 22-year-old Robert P. McMichael II. Just 1 year earlier, in 2003, McMichael had been sentenced to probation for assaulting Ashley, but that didn't stop his behaviour. That morning, Ashley called 911 in a panic, reporting that McMichael had assaulted her again. She promised she would go to her best friend's house for safety, but Ashley never arrived. Her car was found abandoned in a nearby parking lot, with no trace of her. That was the last time anyone heard from Ashley. She had vanished without a trace. About a month later, in July 2004, Ashley's mother, Jackie Stanton, worried and filed a missing person report. Columbus police quickly suspected McMichael, since he was the last known person to have contact with Ashley, and his history of violence made him the prime suspect. However, with no concrete evidence, no body, and no witnesses, the investigation went nowhere. The case soon turned cold. Ashley's father, Mark Howley, from Livonia, Michigan, kept calling McMichael and his mother to demand answers. The family was even accused of telephone harassment out of desperation. Then in 2005, about a year after Ashley's disappearance, an unexpected element emerged. Kristy Robinett, a psychic medium from Metro Detroit, Michigan, who had been working full-time communicating with spirits since 2000. Robinett claimed she had been asleep when she was awakened by the spirit of a young woman who identified herself as Ashley. The spirit described in detail her own death, murdered by a boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, and gave a description of the clothes she had been wearing when she went missing, a detail Robinett could not have known beforehand. Shocked and curious, Robinett searched online and found information about the missing person case of Ashley Howley. She immediately contacted the Columbus police and Ashley's family, providing details from this visit. Ashley's spirit allegedly appeared to her several more times, guiding Robinett to a specific location, a swampy area along the Olentanny River, near McMichael's father's home, at 8,250 Olentanny River Road, north of Columbus. Working for free, Robinett even accompanied Ashley's family to the location, confirming it was where the body was buried. Police, however, could not dig right away because it was private property and they needed more evidence to act. Robinett later explained that Ashley had come to her because she wanted her killer to go to prison. On December 26th, 2007, during the Christmas season, McMichael committed an even more horrifying crime, murdering his mother, 49-year-old Barbara McMichael Rush, by strangulation, and her boyfriend, 43-year-old Greg Barty, by bludgeoning him with a shovel. Their bodies were found 2 days later, on December 28th, in the bedroom of Barbara's home in Minerva Park, showing signs of robbery. McMichael had taken a TV, a DVD player, and had even used a vacuum cleaner to clean the crime scene, but left behind his own blood. He pawned the stolen items for only $130. McMichael was arrested in January 2008 for the double murder and faced the death penalty. The breakthrough came in April 2008. Acting on a tip from one of McMichael's friends, described as a tipster seeking to avoid prosecution, police searched the area along the Olentangy River, exactly where Robinett had pointed 3 years earlier. On April 4th, they found skeletal remains in a shallow grave, concealed with cement to mask the smell and prevent dogs from detecting it. The body was severely decomposed, and the exact cause of death could not be determined, possibly strangulation or blunt force trauma, based on McMichael's pattern of violence, but it was identified as Ashley through dental records. In May 2008, McMichael was charged with murder, tampering with evidence, and abuse of a corpse. In July 2008, he went to trial and pled guilty to killing Ashley along with the other 2 murders to avoid the death penalty. The judge criticised him for thinking he could get away with his crimes for 4 years. In the end, McMichael was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Irene Hughes. Irene Hughes is believed to have been born in 1920, though that's only an estimate, as she often refused to reveal her exact age. She became one of the most famous psychics in Chicago, known for her ability to see past or future events through intuition. 1966 marked a turning point in Hughes' life when she first assisted police in solving a case. The Cook County Sheriff's Department had been stumped by a mysterious disappearance, and Hughes, working from a photograph of the missing man, predicted in detail that he would be found near a large rock along the Cow-Sag Channel, dead from a gunshot wound to the back, wearing a white shirt and missing one shoe. Lieutenant Jerry Harmon, initially skeptical, decided to follow her lead, and indeed found the body exactly as she had described. This case built Harmon's trust in her and began a long-standing partnership between them. Following this success, Hughes and Harmon went on to work together on 8 more cases. One of the most notable was when Hughes provided the exact name of the killer, allowing police to quickly gather evidence and close the case. Hughes did not limit her work to Chicago. She extended her assistance to law enforcement agencies across the United States, helping with over 2,000 cases during a 25-year 5-year span from around 1966 to 1991, never charging a fee. She saw it as a moral mission, following her mother's advice to use her gift to help others. Her method was consistent. Police would provide her with a victim's photograph, sometimes accompanied by clothing or personal items. Hughes would sit quietly, place her hands on the photo or a map to connect, and then offer details such as the location of the body, a description of the killer, or even the date of arrest. Another significant case came around 1990, when she aided Indiana police in investigating the murders of 3 gay men. After reviewing crime scene photos and placing her hand on a map, Hughes predicted the killer's last name was Walker. Police later arrested a suspect matching her description, and the case was quickly resolved. Hughes also made accurate predictions in kidnapping cases. For example, in 1960, she foretold that the kidnapper would be arrested on November 6th and that a major piece of evidence would emerge. The suspect was indeed captured on that date. Beyond criminal cases, Hughes gained fame for her large-scale predictions. In 1962, she accurately predicted the date of death of a former Illinois governor. In 1963, she forecast the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, and in 1968, the death of Robert Kennedy, all published in her newspaper column. She also predicted global events such as Middle East conflicts and extreme weather, which made her a frequent guest on television and in the press. Not all her predictions were 100% correct. Some weather or political forecasts were off, but her high success rate earned her praise from Illinois police, with more than 15 cases officially credited to her contributions. Irene Hughes passed away on December 4th, 2012, at the age of 92, leaving behind a legacy as a psychic who changed the way many viewed the use of intuition in criminal investigations. Annette Martin. Annette Martin was born with a special gift she never asked for. At the age of 7, she had her first premonition. She saw a vision of herself being pelted with stones by the children she was playing with, and just 10 minutes later, it actually happened. This ability seemed to run through the women in her family, many of whom possessed unusually sharp senses. Initially, Annette dreamed of becoming a famous opera singer. She had a powerful voice, achieved her dream, and travelled the world performing leading roles. But her life took a different turn when, starting in 1995, she began testing and confirming the accuracy of her psychic impressions. She hadn't chosen to become a psychic, it just happened by chance, and she decided to use her gift to help others, especially in locating missing persons, a work she pursued for over 20 years. Thousands of miles away, in Pacifica, California, lived 71-year-old Dennis Prado, a retired U.S. Army paratrooper who lived alone in an apartment near San Pedro Valley County Park. Prado enjoyed taking walks in the park to relax, but he was also struggling with health issues, including depression and possibly heart problems. On May 1st, 1997, Dennis Prado mysteriously vanished. He left for a walk after handing his rent check to his landlord and never returned. His sister reported him missing after being unable to reach him. Pacifica police quickly checked his apartment. Everything was neat, with no signs of forced entry, struggle, or theft. His car, wallet, and personal belongings were still there. There was no suicide note, though police initially suspected suicide due to his depression. Sergeant Fernando Relavasquez, who led the investigation, began following leads from family and neighbours, but nothing panned out. The search lasted nearly 2 months, from early May to mid-July 1997. Police distributed flyers weekly, searched surrounding areas, and deployed rescue teams with dogs to sweep the vast park. They scoured every area, including main trails, but found no trace, no clothes, no belongings, no body. Desperate, Prado's family suggested contacting a psychic after a family meeting. Relavasquez was skeptical, but with approval from his superiors. If it makes the family feel better, do it. He ran a background check on Annette Martin, including speaking with Richard Keaton in Marin to verify her reputation. She passed the vetting, and Relavasquez agreed to meet her at her office in Campbell, California. In early July 1997, Annette Martin began her work. Using the technique of psychometry, reading impressions from objects, she held a photo of Prado and studied a map of the area. She entered a trance-like state and began reliving the victim's final moments. She described Prado wearing green clothing, walking along a trail, and suddenly experiencing breathing difficulty, possibly a heart attack or stroke, before collapsing into the bushes. She circled a small spot on a topographical map, about 7/8 of a mile from his apartment, roughly 3/4 of a mile east of Valley View Trail. She predicted the body would be about 15 feet from the main trail, hidden in the brush. Relavasquez was doubtful since the area had already been searched, but he passed the information to the rescue team. Within 15 minutes to an hour, searcher Hauser found Prado's heavily decomposed body. Right inside the circle Martin had drawn drawn 15 feet from the trail in the brush. The remains had been there for 8 to 10 weeks, badly decomposed due to hot weather. An autopsy from the medical examiner's office confirmed that Prado had died of natural causes. Laurie McQuary. In late March 1986, in Lake Oswego, a wealthy suburb of Portland, Oregon, 21-year-old Alexis Burke was a beautiful young mother of a 1.5-year-old boy with Down syndrome. She lived with her husband, 28-year-old John Burke, a man described as lazy, chronically unemployed, and only working when his father found him jobs. Their marriage was plagued by constant arguments, mostly about money and John's lack of responsibility. Around March 28, 1986, a heated argument broke out between Alexis and John in their apartment. The fight escalated into violence. In a sudden burst of rage, John strangled Alexis to death. He called his brother, Kelly Burke, a college student playing sports in Southern California. Kelly helped John transport Alexis's body in an old car with a large trunk. They buried her in a field near a creek, only about 75 yards from the metal fabrication plant where John and Kelly had once worked. To create a diversion, John drove Alexis's family car to a rest area about 15 miles from their home. He pushed the driver's seat back to fit the height of a taller man, left the keys in the ignition, locked the doors, and placed an open map inside with a city in Washington circled. 3 days later, on March 31st, 1986, John Burke finally reported to police that his wife was missing. He claimed Alexis had driven off after an argument and never returned. Detective Robert W. Lee of the Lake Oswego Police Department was assigned to the case. From the beginning, Lee was suspicious of John, noting his lack of genuine concern. Police searched the apartment but found nothing incriminating. They focused on finding Alexis's car, hoping she might be nearby. The vehicle was quickly located at the rest area, with the odd details of the seat pushed back, the locked doors despite the keys being inside, and the map. A canine search team combed the area but found no body. The case stalled. No body, no clear evidence to charge John with murder, only a missing person investigation. As days turned into months, Alexis's family, especially her mother, grew desperate. With no progress from the police, they reached out to psychic Laurie McQuary, a well-known Portland psychic, who agreed to help without charging a fee. In her first phone call with Alexis's mother, Laurie immediately had a vision. She sensed Alexis was dead, with a feeling of heaviness and violence. Laurie described Alexis as fiery and intense, while John was lazy, unemployed, and frequently argued with her over money and possibly drugs. She envisioned a violent fight at home that ended with John strangling Alexis. Detective Lee, a left-brain logical thinker, was initially skeptical but agreed to meet Laurie at a diner. She gave him a series of specific details. The number 15 tied to the 15-mile distance to where the car was abandoned, an old car with a large trunk used to transport the body, and the involvement of John's brother Kelly. Taking a bold step, Laurie even pretended to be a prospective tenant to meet John at the apartment while he was moving out. When she shook his hand, she claimed to distinctly sense the act of strangulation. Laurie continued to share visions. The body was buried near Bell's Landing, a spot by a creek that John could see from his workplace, in a field near a non-residential building. Police searched these areas, but initially came up empty. The case dragged on for over a year. Under mounting pressure, Lee interrogated John, hoping for a confession. The turning point came when Julie, John's ex-girlfriend, told police that John had admitted to killing his wife near the metal fabrication plant where he worked. Laurie persisted in saying Kelly was involved. Influenced by her lead, Lee called Kelly's friends back before the grand jury, and they revealed that Kelly did, in fact, know about the murder. Kelly eventually confessed in exchange for immunity, leading investigators directly to Alexis's burial site, just 75 yards from John's workplace. The body was exhumed, and the medical examiner confirmed death by strangulation. John Burke was arrested, tried, and sentenced to 13 years in Oregon State Prison for manslaughter. Kelly faced no prison time due to his cooperation. Of the 30 specific points Laurie provided, 29 were proven accurate, transforming the case from a missing person investigation to a homicide and bringing justice to Alexis. Dorothy Allison. Dorothy Allison was born on December 25th, 1924, in Jersey City, New Jersey, into a working-class family. From an early age, Dorothy experienced unusual events that she would later view as signs of psychic ability. She recalled having prophetic dreams or sudden intuitions about future events. One of the most vivid and haunting occurred when she was just 15 in 1939. Dorothy suddenly sensed the imminent death of her father, a healthy man with no signs of illness. She cried and begged begged him not to go to work, but he left the house as usual and died of a sudden heart attack just hours later. As an adult, Dorothy lived an ordinary life typical of women of her generation. She married Al Allison, who worked in construction, and the couple moved to Nutley, New Jersey. They had 4 children, and Dorothy devoted herself to being a homemaker. Yet, her intuitions kept surfacing, sometimes helping her avoid minor accidents or foresee family events. She kept her gift private, partly out of fear of being seen as odd, and partly because she believed it was a gift from God that shouldn't be exploited. It wasn't until the 1960s, as cases of missing children grew more frequent in the US, that Dorothy decided to use her ability to help others. She felt that if she didn't act, she would be guilty before her own conscience. Her career as a psychic detective officially began in 1968 with the disappearance of 5-year-old Michael Kirksix in Nutley. One night, Dorothy had a vivid dream. She saw a boy in a blue snowsuit drowned in a drainage pipe near a river, his sneakers on the wrong feet. At that time, details of the disappearance had not been widely publicised, yet Dorothy felt compelled to contact the local police. She described the drainage pipe's location and the condition of the body. Initially, detectives suspected she was either a fraud or possibly involved, but they followed up on her description. A month later, in February 1968, Michael's body was found exactly as she had described. He had fallen into a drainage pipe while playing, been pulled in by the current and drowned. His shoes were indeed on the wrong feet, possibly due to the current or because he had put them on incorrectly himself. It was ruled an accident, not a homicide. But Dorothy's insight helped the family recover his body swiftly. From that point, Dorothy's reputation spread. She began receiving requests from law enforcement agencies across the US and even abroad. Over more than 30 years, she assisted in more than 5,000 cases, mostly involving missing children or unsolved homicides. Dorothy never accepted payment, only reimbursement for travel and lodging, believing her ability was a gift from God that should not be commercialized. Her method often relied on dreams or visions. She would meditate over a victim's photograph, then describe the body's location, the suspect's features, or other case details. Another high-profile case came in 1976 when the family of 16-year-old Susan Jacobson, missing from Staten Island, New York, contacted Dorothy. She immediately sensed that Susan's body was near water but had not drowned, that there was an odor of kerosene, and that it was close to a rock with the letters Ma painted on it. Dorothy directed police to a marsh area, but no body was found at the time. 2 years later, in 1978, 2 boys stumbled upon Susan's remains, stuffed inside 2 old oil drums, exactly near the rock marked MAR. It was revealed that Susan had been strangled during an argument with her 16-year-old British boyfriend, Dempsey Hawkins. The motive stemmed from jealousy and the pressure Hawkins felt as he prepared to return to England. He had hidden her body inside the drums to avoid detection, but the crude method failed. Hawkins was arrested in 1979 and sentenced to 22 years to life in prison. Dorothy's insight in this case not only led to the discovery of the body, but also indirectly pointed toward the killer, Harold Pate. On a November afternoon in 1991, in the town of Malvern, Arkansas, 17-year-old Tyson Afford was working at the local food center supermarket when a stranger approached him at the checkout counter. The man pretended that he had accidentally bumped Tyson's car in the parking lot and asked him to come outside and take a look. Trusting and unsuspecting, Tyson followed. As soon as he stepped outside, a second man, 36-year-old Carl Lafayette Meny, suddenly rushed from behind, grabbed Tyson in a chokehold and pressed a knife to his throat. His accomplice, Kevin Scott, backed him up with a gun. The 2 men quickly forced Tyson into a pickup truck and sped away, leaving behind his car and stunned co-workers. Tyson's family, his father, a police officer, and his mother, an investigator, raised the alarm immediately. A massive search was launched, involving local and state police, the FBI, and hundreds of volunteers. They combed the Malvern area, checked suspicious trucks, and circulated Tyson's description: tall, blonde, wearing his work uniform. Witnesses reported seeing him with 2 men in a pickup just minutes after he vanished, but no solid leads emerged. After 2 days without results, the family was in despair, especially Tyson's mother. She turned to an unexpected source, psychic Carol Pate, known in Arkansas for assisting in missing persons cases. Tyson's mother brought Pate a photo of her son. Upon touching it, Pate felt an immediate powerful connection. She described disturbing visions, Tyson being physically and sexually assaulted by 2 men. She sketched one kidnapper, a man in camouflage camouflage clothing with a large belt and cowboy boots. Most importantly, the word Ridge flashed in her mind. Pate insisted Tyson was still alive, though in serious danger. This gave the family a glimmer of hope. Acting on her information, police focused their search near a location called Ridge Road, a remote lane less than half a mile from where Tyson had been abducted. Pate even led searchers close to the very house where he was being held. Meanwhile, Tyson was enduring a living nightmare. After his abduction, he was taken to an isolated house on Ridge Road. Meany and Scott locked him in a separate room, subjecting him to physical and psychological torture, playing Russian roulette, smothering him twice with a pillow. Once Meany counted down 3 seconds to die, before stopping to demand sex, and sexually assaulting him at least 3 times. He was restrained, threatened with death if he resisted, and tormented with twisted mind games. After 6 days, between November 14th and November 20th, 1991, Tyson persuaded Meany to let him go. Before releasing him, the captors bizarrely handed him $1,000, either to buy his silence or as part of their psychological manipulation. They drove him near his home and let him out. Tyson immediately ran to a neighbour's house, called for help, and was reunited with his family. When he recounted his ordeal, his family was stunned. Every detail matched what Carol Pate had described: the kidnapper's appearance, the Ridge location, even the private acts of abuse known only to Tyson and his attackers. Based on Tyson's testimony, police quickly arrested Meany and Scott. At their trial in June 1992 in Saline County, Meany claimed that Tyson had blackmailed and seduced him into consensual sex and refused to leave until they did it again. The court dismissed this as absurd given the evidence and Tyson's account. Both men were convicted of 3 counts of rape, each earning 3 consecutive life sentences, plus 30 years for attempted murder and 20 years for kidnapping. Okay, if you're excited for the next episode, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel to support us. Thank you so much for watching the entire video.